I know this looks terrible, this isn't a mistake or some crazy sci-fi war paint. This is how real artists paint their faces, but would it work in miniature painting? Human skin is complex and not just one colour. You can see how the colour of his skin changes as you look from his forehead to his nose, then to the bottom of his cheeks. Oil painters tend to underpaint their face first, then layer on top of it to create the slight changes in skin tone. Can I do it on a Space Marine? I'll paint the face normally for the baseline of this test. The first step is to base coat the face a flesh tone. Here I'm using Beastigour Flesh. Then the face was washed with a flesh coloured wash like Rightland Flesh Shade. The mid-tone was reapplied the same colour used for the base coat, followed by highlighting the most prominent areas like the cheeks, brow and nose. Before I continue, I want to let you know you can click the link in the description for our free painting guides. When you look at human skin, it isn't just one tone, going from light to dark. The areas where the light hits directly tend to look warm, yellowish or peachy. The areas in shadow tend to look cool, slightly purple, blue or green. This happens because skin lets some light through, and blood, bone and tissue all affect how light passes through it differently depending on depth. Faces can look flat and unrealistic when they are just darker and lighter shades of the same colour. Flemish portrait painters start to underpaint the skin of their portraits with the correct tones to give their portraits realistic complexity. You can see the change of tones in the different parts of the face of this painting. The forehead is the brightest part, with the top of it close to an off-white. The cheeks and nose are a rosy red colour and a bluish tone that's been painted on the jaw area. Can we use this information to improve our models? In miniature painting, the cheek and nose will be the same colour as the brow and forehead, but this is a good example that shows that the nose and cheek are redder than those areas. This final photo shows how the tone of colour changes across the face. The lower cheeks have a pleasing bluish shadow. This contrasts with the shadow around the eyes that is a warm colour. This is a rough guide of how to undershade your faces to create these tones. The brow and forehead are underpainted a yellow. They show the lightest parts of the face. Working down the face, the nose and cheeks are next, which should be underpainted red. When we check the reference photos, the nose has a red tone despite being a prominent part of the face. Finally, to add some shading, the bottom half of the face is painted a blue or grey colour. This happens because there is less blood flow to the skin in this area than in other areas of the face. If you're painting a male face, this blue tone can be more extreme to show a 5 o'clock shadow. I want to find out if this works on miniatures like it does on larger oil paintings. To start painting the face, I base coat the forehead and brow with an eyeshadow. For this, I used Dawn Yellow. This will make the forehead and brow the brightest part of the face. During this step, every colour was painted with 2 thin coats. Then the cheeks and brow were painted with Mephiston Red to add some warmth to the face. This will create the rosy nose and cheeks to match the reference photos used earlier. Before placing my brush to the model, I used my thumb to check the consistency for a final time. Any areas past the temples were painted with corn red to add some shading to the face. Burgundy was used because it's the right tone for this part of the face. It will add shading as it's darker than the red used around the nose. Lastly, dark blue-grey was used on any areas that were unpainted. The fang was used for this step. This adds a shadow around the jaw which will make it stand out, and adds a blue tone to show that blood is further away from the surface than other parts of the face. At this point the face looks completely ruined, so I'm praying that it actually works out. So I start applying a thin layer of Beastigour Flesh, which was the flesh colour I used on the first face that I painted. This paint was thinned down more than normal. I was starting to think this was a waste of time. I applied a second coat a bit thicker to try and rescue the face, but it didn't fix it. At this point I realised the face was ruined and art techniques don't always translate to miniature painting. Even if this had worked, it had taken a lot more time to get to this stage because I had to use multiple colours and paint them in thin lines across the face. But studying the faces hadn't gone to waste because I'm going to show you a quick way to make your faces more realistic. You can use this throughout your army or just on characters. I started glazing following the underpainting earlier. So eyeshadow was applied to the forehead, and the same red was applied to the cheeks as before to add some colour to the face. Then the same blue was used around the jaw. I brushed downwards as most paint is deposited at the end of the stroke. Here's a comparison before and after the additional glazes. So, art techniques don't always translate to miniature painting, but spending a few more minutes to add some different tones can really set your model off. Click the best sellers link below to shop our range of Kalinski Sable brushes to help you paint small details like faces.